Welcome to A Dark Path, a podcast exploring the depths of witchcraft, magic, the occult, and all things mysterious. Join us on this journey into the unknown, down a dark path overgrown. Find spells and rituals, folklore and legends. Come, set your candles alight to clear your mind and unwind. Delve into the shadows to uncover a dark path.
Welcome back to A Dark Path, a podcast exploring the depths of witchcraft, magic, the occult, and all things mysterious. I am Kristen, and I absolutely love kitty cats. They are probably one of my favorites.
I'm Allyson, owner of Jupiter's Omens, and I wear my sunglasses at night.
I'm Heidi. I am the owner of Wise Wolf Craft. I have an excessive amount of roses in my house right now.
Today, we are also joined by Susy. She's the owner of Blue Lightning Healing. Tell us about yourself, your business, and if you call yourself a witch.
Hiya. Thanks for having me. I'm Susy, and I've lived up here since 1996. Blue Lightning Healing is my business, and I'm a channel that brings source through in such a way that people are comfortable and feel relaxed in the energy. Yes, I consider myself a witch, and to be honest, I have called myself a witch for far less time than other people have, because for me, a witch is one who works with energy in a variety of ways, including healing and manifesting and doing the things to make the world a better place, just for me being here. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thanks.
Our episode today, it's a very dear topic to us, developing intuition and spiritual connection.
So to start us off, we're of course going to define intuition. It is the ability to know something by using your feelings rather than considering the facts. Also, an idea or a strong feeling that something is true, although you cannot explain why. So the word intuition is borrowing from French, because I looked up the etymology. It comes from the Middle English period, and the first written example that we have is in 1497 by John Alcock, administrator and bishop of Ely.
Intuition is just like Allyson defined, but there's also insight. That's the power of acting or seeing into a situation or result of apprehending the inner nature of things or of seeing intuitively. So they kind of also work together.
So how do you guys notice intuition based off of that definition? In what ways do you interact with yours?
For me, intuition is that I hear or know things. And I also use muscle testing. So do I need to eat this? Yes, no, and all that. But I've learned though, muscle testing.
Yeah, go
Is
back.
that what you want to know?
That?
Sorry. It's also known as applied kinesiology. And what it is that this is where you develop a trust in what your body has to say. You ask your body what it knows. So for me, I do it primarily with food. What food's going to be good for me? That's that external focal point of how I develop trust in what my body's got to say.
So I consider it to be a gut feeling for myself. And that's kind of the main way that I interact with it.
I have had everything from a gut instinct to feeling nauseous.
I feel like I have a similar experience in the sense that I feel like my intuition comes in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it's based on what I'm doing, but sometimes it's just more based on where I'm at as far as my energy, my emotions, a lot of different things, my environment. I feel like I use my intuition a lot, obviously at work, because I do tarot and I do energy healing, and through the energy healing, you do a lot of intuitive work. It's really helped shape my personal life because I let intuition kind of guide my spirituality. Because of that, I feel like I'm using intuition all the time.
I mean, I can definitely argue that most people are using their intuition all the time. They may not have an actual term for it.
So do we think that everybody has an intuition?
Myself personally, I think yes. I think everybody's got it. I just think it depends on how much you use it and how strong you build the muscle.
I think environment can make you feel really out of touch with your intuition. Personal energy can make you feel really out of touch with your intuition. And by out of touch, I just mean it can be hard to hear, or you cannot trust it, or you can let your mundane mind kind of debunk your intuition, but it's still there. So yes, I think everyone has it, but I think that sometimes when you feel oh, well, I don't have it, that's just because you've got a hard time hearing it or receiving it.
Psychologically, it is proven we have either intuition or insight or both. One is more creative and one is more logical. But I don't know. I personally believe that everybody has an intuition for sure. What about you, Susie?
I do believe everybody's got it. They call it different things. Like Allyson, you called it gut instinct. And that's what everybody else will call it before assigning intuition, which is they feel a woo-woo term. And I'm like, yeah, no, they're the same. You got to work with them together. It works.
So now that we know more about intuition, can intuition be trained? Can it be developed? What can we do to kind of build that? A lot of times people don't listen to their intuition because of social pressures. If I say that, people are going to think I'm mentally ill. Stuff like that can kind of get in the way and be like a really big blockage. So I think a lot of it is trusting myself more than the others around me. Now, once you get a good group of people, definitely start trusting in them and start working with them. But you have to also feel comfortable, but you know your body so much more than anybody else. So trust yourself. Don't let other people get in the way.
Kristen, there are a lot of societal pressures because if you're too weird for them, but honestly, I'm at an age when I'm just like, whatever, I just don't have the patience for it. And I probably hit that about 30 years ago, to be honest. When clients come to me and they say, I can't hear my guides, it's like, are you sure you're supposed to hear them? You can use these external focal points that we're talking about, whether it's cards. The thing with cards, though, I have had those moments where I'm throwing down cards and I look at them and I go, yeah, that may be the right answer. I don't like it. So I gather them up and I put them aside. And then, of course, you throw the cards again and it's the same answer. So
Building your intuition can be a gradual process. It takes time to tune yourself into your intuitive frequencies, be able to actually get something back. Like a lot of people have commented already, it's not always that you're going to hear it. Sometimes you're going to smell it. Sometimes it's going to be a feeling. Sometimes it's signs that you've seen around, things like that too. All sorts of things can make it difficult to hear it or to feel it, but constantly checking in with your body, checking in with yourself. Heidi brings this up so many times. Keep a journal. Like keep a journal, cuz then you'll go back on those days that you're like, man, today really sucks and I have not heard a single thing. I have not felt a single thing. If you still like write it down, then you go, oh, every single day I've seen a lantern. What does that mean? Once you have that journal, you can look back and go, okay, okay, I see that. You were talking to me. I just didn't notice it at the time.
I think just to interject, because I do give this speech all the time and I feel very strongly about it. I think it helps in a lot of ways. One of them is what you're just talking about. It helps you track your successes like 100%, but it also can help you show patterns that result in problematic outcomes. Like, so if you consistently are reading the cards weird about a situation, you're like, that's not right. That's not right. And then you look back and you're like, oh, but I'm trying to read every day after work when I'm hella dehydrated and whatever. If you have that kind of stuff tracked, you can go, okay, maybe I need to approach that form when I'm in a better state physically, or when I'm in a better state mentally, or whatever it is. But if you don't track it, it can be really hard to see any sort of pattern, especially if you're in a discouraged space, right? Because then and I can't speak for everyone, but my mundane mind likes to do a thing where it creates a really pretty negative reality if it's not put into check with something that's pretty firm and concrete, And so having the journal is just very powerful to combat the mundane mind that wants to put you back in your place, and tell you that you're not intuitive and that go back on social media and stop tuning in, you gotta fight. So anyway, thank you. Speech over.
Can intuition be trained or developed in someone who doesn't have it? The answer I firmly believe is yes. And like we've been talking about mindfulness through journaling, just like having mindfulness of your body, right? Doing body scans and feeling when you have to make decisions where it is in you. If that is difficult for you or you're having trouble making decisions anyways, that is typically a sign of depression. In which case, I recommend the route that I went, which is intensive therapy. Learning to trust your intuition and rely on your intuition with a professional is not something that everyone has to do, but it is something that some of us have to do. And it makes a huge difference when you have that guide, someone who's telling you that these whims or these ideas that you have aren't crazy. They're actually probably things that you should entertain. That is not an easy road, but it's one that's really beneficial, especially if you're struggling to have mindfulness, feel your intuition, make decisions, things like that. Honoring it is a great place to start, right? Like, what do I want for dinner? And then getting the thing that comes to mind first, right? Even if it's ice cream or something like that. Not every night, obviously, you have to take care of yourself, but acting on your intuitive whims and building that trust with yourself is going to then further strengthen it in order to do witchcraft.
But that's just it. You can do small things every day, multiple times a day. And eventually you're going to start to see it. You're going to start to feel it. You're going to start to experience it. And then you'll be like, oh, that's what my intuition is. If you don't have it, you'll get it. I swear. Keep trying.
Why is intuition important to witchcraft? Or is it? I think it is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like I think it's really important to witchcraft, not just in the fact of let's do a spell, just being able to build your confidence, build your self-confidence, build your trust and trust in yourself and trust in your spirit guides. It's so healing.
I mean, isn't that what spell work is? You're using your intuition to pull together all these different elements. It's like, this is what I want to manifest. This is what I want my spell work to do. Like for me, a moon ritual is going out, finding the moon, if I can, being up in the Pacific Northwest, you're like, no, okay. But just acknowledging it. For me, that's enough. I think intuition also takes into account what energy you have for the working.
Yeah, I use intuition the same way in my craft, where I like to think about what it is that I want or what I'm trying to achieve, and then I'll intuitively find ingredients based off of those wishes and desires that I have. Of course, I like cross-reference too, but I mainly follow my intuition. And then I also use intuition to tell me what type of ritual I'm going to do. Am I going to do a bath? Am I going to do a fire spell? Am I going to do folding manifestation work? Using intuition to speak with forces outside of you. So you understand your own intuition, the language that you use, your own energy. And then from there, you can communicate with people and entities outside of you. You know when a message is coming in, and you can sense somebody else's presence or hear somebody else's whisper versus your own internal monologue. And that's how I personally use intuition in my practice.
You ever had that feeling where you just got to call that person? Like, I have to call my mom right now. I don't know why. I just have to call her. And then you call and she's like, how did you know that I was having such a shit day? That is intuition.
Right.
Just want to say, if you're like, hey, out there, I'm listening and I don't have an intuition, if you've ever done something like that, it's there. You did it. For my intuition, I've had internal voices that are not like mental illness. They're literally like, hey, go this way. Hey, do that thing. And then also visual, I personally see more of like people or a shadow figure or things like that.
So another arena in which we use intuition is when we're doing Reiki or energy work, or at least I do. I know that when I take an initial read energetically on someone, my intuition is deeply involved. It'll help me choose which stones I want to work with, if I'm using stones during the healing, or which color of light I'm going to call on. It just depends on their energy and how I experience it intuitively. For me, it kind of comes in a variation of ways. Like I said, it'll be either the sense that I should be working with certain things, like just a sense of what I should be doing. Sometimes I feel in certain areas of the body and I'm really in tune with my chakras, so I tend to use that as a way to translate. I don't know though, it's my experience. How does it work for you, Susie? Do you do something similar, or is it different?
Well, I know when I would feel my hands move, or I would feel some sort of, I call it an impulse to move my hand someplace else. And then that's when I started channeling and I would bring forth messages. The energetic flow is important. And that's how I'm able to call on all the different resources. Because, as we practice it, we get better and the flow gets more intense to listen and to believe the information you receive. Because when you start, nah, that can't be it, that really cheats you and the person you're working with of some really deep healing.
It's so easy when you're working with others to like question what's going on and you're like, there's no way. But if you kind of just let go and trust the process, it ends up that that's not the case.
It
So,
also can be really hard and tempting to compare journeys, right? With intuition. You have somebody like say you start at the similar time and so you feel like you should have a similar skill set or similar ability level or any of these things, right? And I don't like to tell people they can't, but I would really hesitate to compare your journey because it's a painful process and you could be celebrating your journey.
The comparison with other people in their spiritual journey. I get that. I had one client who just said, I just wish I could do it just like you did. And then I listened to her talk about the way she received her intuition. I'm like, what do you mean? You're doing just great. If we were all at the same place at the same time, well, geez, we'd all be ascended, and we're not. We've got to help clear the path for other people to find their way.
I love having Susie on the show. This is really fun.
What are some ways that we think that intuition is or can be suppressed?
so I referenced my trauma journal, my therapy journal, to answer this question because I was having a hard time finding credible sources that explained ways in which your intuition can be suppressed. And so this is pulling from personal experience without getting into nitty-gritty details. We've got the American education system, which favors logical thinking and conditions the heck out of creative, intuitive thought. We also have individuals with histories of abuse and violence. When you have a freeze response, that literally shuts everything down rather than giving in to your intuitive impulse to run or to fight. Also, emotional abuse and manipulation hardcore suppresses intuition, like gaslighting, minimizing emotions or situations, invalidating, things like that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, depression. What a kick to the gut to learn that healthy individuals judge and decide everyday tasks using intuition with no problem, and depressed individuals have difficulty judging and deciding literally anything. Indecisiveness is a diagnostic criterion for major depressive disorder. And if that's a thing that you're struggling with, talk to your doctor today.
I love that you touch on trauma and therapy. It's not for everyone. Sometimes you have to find the right person. There is so much that can keep you down, especially trauma experiences, societal issues, things like Allison had brought up. But if you need that help, there are so many ways. We're going to probably get into that a lot later. Personally, for me, a lot of it was I was very suppressed by fear. Fear of if I do this wrong, am I going to break something?
So interesting. So it's like perfectionism.
Oh, yeah. Super
Whoa.
perfectionist over here. It was a lot of if I do this wrong, what's going to be the outcome? Not listening to that gut feeling and just saying, hey, I'm going to go do this thing has gotten me into more trouble than just listening to it. So trusting in yourself is really important too. And I know I keep saying that over and over again because it's so important. But that was also me practicing at the same time too. So even though there's like that suppression, even though you may not hear it all the time, you may not feel it all the time, every single moment is practice.
Traumatic situations like that are so complicated. I think that one of the quickest ways to get in touch with your intuition is self-compassion. If you can be compassionate to yourself, you will start to be more centered and grounded.
Trauma is very much a part of suppressing one's intuition. Mine, the more I think about it, came through being a part of the church. I suppressed my own intuition. It was the first form of channeling I did, and I was 8. I was in my room and I was chalk drawing, and I never worried about it. And this time I stood back and I saw this image of a woman who was leaning under a tree. And I thought, wow, look at that smooth line for her butt and her hip and then the leg and her boobs. I was like, boobs? Holy shit. She's naked. I'm 8. I'm Catholic. Nobody gets naked there. So I erased it. And I struggle with drawing to this day. It took me a long time to get past that, like when I started reading tarot cards. But yeah, I definitely think you can self-suppress because you're still in that paradigm where other people's opinions have an impact on you. And that can take a while to break free from.
Guilt and shame, I think, also do a really good job of making you feel like your intuition is quack. which leads to self-gaslighting, which is, again, such a wonderful place to be in. And you end up creating, or at least I did, end up creating a life that wasn't mine because I didn't listen to anything coming from myself. I couldn't trust it. I was told that I couldn't trust it from society, from the people I loved, and it was not a happy place for me. So once I realized that that was the problem, I did what I had to do to fix it. In my opinion, a suppressed intuition usually feels like you're living somebody else's life, or like you're doing things for other people, or you're ignoring your basic needs and wants. That side shelving of yourself in order to appease other people. So it looks like perfectionism, people pleasing, overworking, imposter syndrome, all kinds of things like that.
Something we haven't talked about much, but was definitely has been part of my experience is I have chronic pain. When I am in pain, it is very difficult to be in touch with my highest self and with my intuition. I am much, much more likely to just be a cranky bitch. Like that's the vibe, right? It's not something that goes away. So you just got to deal. And it's kind of twofold because it's like, one, when you have a situation that affects your intuition that is not really going to change at a level that's going to make it so that you just feel like, oh, good, well, I don't have to deal with that anymore. You end up having to kind of just develop little mechanisms to help yourself get from A to B. And so for me, it's interesting because developing my intuition was also a big part of my healing journey. I've come a very long journey of where I'm at right now, but through listening to my intuition, which was very difficult at the beginning, I was able to understand the types of things I needed to be doing to help my system. I still have my condition, and it's still sometimes as hard for me to hear, but just the knowledge is helpful. And then again, having my little tools, like if I'm having trouble getting in touch, I will bust out my CBD cream, or I'll get into the tub and soak, do the thing that makes you feel less in pain. And I think a lot of times the things that put us into those places are the things that make us excel in intuition once we're able to touch. Once you get in touch with your intuition, you'll find you're also insightful because you've had life experience.
What are some of the ways that you guys have been able to strengthen your own intuition, or what are some things that you would recommend?
If people are needing help getting in touch with their intuition, I think therapy is a great way to start. It can be difficult, as we've mentioned, and I recognize that I personally have gotten incredibly lucky in finding amazing counselors and methods that jive with my nervous system. I think another way that you can really build your intuition is just noticing it and honoring it. Whenever you feel that gut feeling or hear that thing, or however your intuition is interacting with you, just recognize it.
What I do is I talk to myself. Like when I drive, for me, that's a sacred space. And I'll go through and I'll talk to my guide. I also use these external focal points we touched on earlier. I'll look at cards. I like using a pendulum. We can say practice, 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 but you got to find that way to help you feel comfortable. And thinking, oh, this feels stupid. Well, then do something else. It doesn't matter. There's no wrong answers, I think, with this. And it may take some trial and error.
We've been traveling together down a dark path. Now it's time to take a break and listen to some of our sponsors. A Dark Path will return after these messages.
Light the way on your dark path with Wise Wolf Craft's unique selection of tools for living with intention. From manifestation kits to altar items and divination tools, we have everything you need to connect with your inner wisdom. Wise Wolf Craft offers Reiki and other energy healing sessions, divination readings, and a variety of classes on topics like intuitive tarot and personalized spell work. Unleash the power within. Visit Wise Wolf Craft today online at wisewolfcraft.com and on Facebook and Instagram as @WiseWolfCraft. Wise Wolf Craft, tools for living with intention. Needing guidance on your dark path? Explore the mysterious world of Jupiter's Omens, offering handmade rituals, spells, and tools to focus your intention during spell work, vintage altar tools and decor, and intuitive tarot sessions utilizing claircognizance. Visit Jupiter's Omens, where the mystical and macabre meet, at jupitersomens.square.site. That's jupitersomens.square.site.
What does it mean to be or to have spiritual connection? In my regular style, I've looked up the definition.
We love that.
So again, though, spiritual connection, I don't really have a concrete definition from a scholarly source, a widely accepted scholarly source. So the source that I have, I think, is one of the best scholarly sources, which is wearenative.org. Indigenous knowledge, I think, is closer to our ancestral knowledge. Personally, that's my own agenda, and it's worth preserving. So my definition for spiritual connection comes from there. Quote, our ability to intuitively understand something that impacts our soul and gives meaning to our lives. Some people experience spiritual connection by having a relationship to the Creator, their ancestors, Mother Earth, and all living things. Others experience it through participating in religious or traditional ceremonies, sitting in nature, praying, or through deep reflection and meditation. What do you guys think spiritual connection is?
I like that. That puts it into words far better than I could.
Right? I'm a fan. I'm just going to claim that.
I'm a
yes,
big fan.
That's what I think now too.
It doesn't mean my definition is any better or worse. Like we said earlier, there are no wrong answers. Being in the flow of energy. Synchronicity, people would call coincidences, but it's events, people, or things coming together in such a way to open you up more to what growth is, to what our spiritual growth is. And that spiritual connection, I feel, is that flow. It's taking you out of the what if and putting you in this is what it is. This is the now. And that for me is spiritual connection, because when I'm centered, when I'm grounded, I'm in tune with source.
Some people call it source. I always have called it universe because I personally came from a Christian background where it was God, the Holy Trinity, things like that. Even in the Bible, it teaches God is in everything. So whether you call it God, you call it Allah, you call it source, you call it universe, it's everywhere. It's in the air we breathe. It's in the rocks. It's in, ourselves.
Do we think that a spiritual connection is important to witchcraft?
I definitely think so. I think that there's a huge connect between witchcraft and spiritual connection. Doing a spell or a manifestation, sometimes you're like, oh, this is this spell and it should not have rosemary in it. I just feel like I gotta throw that in there. That's because it's personal to you. Follow that intuition, follow what the universe is telling you. Because if you're trying to get this better outcome, it's going to work better if you follow that intuition, listen to your spirit guide, and throw the weird thing in that maybe somebody else wouldn't.
Because it makes it yours. More than anything, it makes it yours. I mean, everything is energy. It's all connected. We're all source or universe, and we're all aspects of it. But then you get to throw in that thing, that rosemary that makes it your spell. And that, I think, is what empowers the spell even more. It's not that somebody up on high is going, oh, look, she's trying to get our attention. It's like, no, this is a part of me. This is my intuition that has spoken, and I'm listening to it. So it strengthens not only your intuition, but your spell also.
So to follow up, Susie, I've been contemplating. So when I was doing up my notes for this episode, I wasn't sure how to answer this question. And, we're down to the wire now. It's my turn to answer. And I've come up with, at first I wanted to say no, spiritual connection is not necessarily important to witchcraft, and you don't need it. But the me from episode 1 and 2 entered my brain and reminded me that literally is magic. Right? That connection that is made, that manipulative energy of manipulating forces, that is spiritual connection. Magic in and of itself is that spiritual connection, right? It's the thing that ties you to something greater than yourself. So do you have to be religious? We've talked about this. No, you don't. You don't have to use a deity. You don't have to use anything outside of you. You doing magic in and of itself as a witch means that you have a spiritual connection to something bigger than you. And so, yeah, inherently, spiritual connection is important to witchcraft, and you have to have it, which I hate saying. Heidi, I'm really hoping that you can fight me on this, but like, I think logically, that's where I'm at with this answer.
I don't know that I'm going to fight you very much, truthfully, because
Oh no.
I know. I really wanted to come down on the other side of this one just for fun. The thing is, even as like like when you're working with energy, you know, we talk about how your intention will tell the energy where to go, but in the nature of Reiki anyways, Reiki is going to go where it's most needed. If we consider that phrase, we're talking about a sentient energy because
Right.
it's making decisions, it's going places, it has awareness. And if that is true, then yeah, I think like if you follow that path, we end up at then manipulating energy in any way or acknowledging that universal energy is acknowledging that there's something larger that you're willing to pull from. Now, that doesn't have to be veneration, which is something I always like to, you can always make your relationship more about equal exchange, but it is a spiritual connection, right? Because it's an energetic connection.
I like that. I thank you for reminding us that energy is sentient. I appreciate that.
Well, that makes me think of like energy is neither created nor destroyed. So,
You know, something else I like to just throw out there while we're talking about energy and this kind of thing. One of the things I like to remind people of is when you try to like do something that feels very woohoo, like draw energy from the earth, which can feel very woohoo, but is really fundamentally good, right? You have to remind yourself, since people have been peopling, we have been lending energy to the earth. We have been investing in the earth. We have been worshiping the earth. We have been putting all sorts of energy into the earth. So if what Kristen says is true, and we're only changing the form of energy, why is that extension so difficult to believe then, even in your mundane mind, that you're just drawing on energy that's been lent there by other people because it's just they're waiting? Now it's just remembering the filter, calling on what you need, not just all of it and getting all jacked up and crazy.
with spiritual connection, how do you know that you've actually connected with something bigger than yourself?
I think that first you have to consider yourself because your spectrum or alignment is going to kind of dictate where things are coming from. Okay. So to use that as an example, I am someone who is very, let's call it chaotic good or maybe lawful good, but it's my own set of laws. So if I have a thought come to me or the urge to harm others, to harm myself, that is way out of alignment for me. So that is something that is not coming from source for me. That's not coming from my intuition. That's coming either from a mental health issue or from an attachment. This can come in a bunch of different departments, but like I said earlier, I tend to work through chakras. So if you're having an issue in one of your chakras too, that can manifest some really weird stuff that's actually out of alignment for you that might feel right and feel good, but it's because your energy's off and you're not actually resonating at your highest vibration. You have a lower vibration that you're drawing in from. So that's interesting too, because that's that feeling where you get like, oh, I listened to the signs and I did what I was supposed to do, but the outcome didn't come the way I thought. A lot of times that will have to do with like a personal alignment issue. You know, it's like, it's because your personal vibration has to change before you can move forward. So,
And alignment hits different. When you're living in alignment, it feels different in your body, right? So like that's been a huge part of my own healing journey is rediscovering my intuition and understanding how I feel in my vessel. When you're not living in alignment, you feel numb, you feel closed off, you feel general blah and sad or apathy. These are things that we think of depression. Also, when you're not in alignment, I think that anxiety shows up. So when you're living in alignment, when you go from that period of living in alignment and then shifts to being in alignment, and alignment is things you're supposed to be doing, things that honor your intuition, ways you're supposed to be spending your time, it feels lighter. The energy in you feels lighter. I think another thing to make note of is, in general, thoughts of self-harm or harming others is a textbook diagnosis for depression, and you should probably reach out to a doctor, see if there's any help available to you. Self-harm and homicidal thoughts are not normal.
thank you for saying that. That was a great
Yeah.
presentation. Yeah. You know, just something you were saying about feeling it physically. Also, I feel like you see synchronicity when you're in alignment. you'll feel like stuff falls into place a lot of times. Or if it doesn't, you are resilient.
Knowing that you're connecting to something greater than you. Use your tools, whether it's tarot, prayer, journaling, those tools can help you to narrow down, is this a mental illness issue? Is this something that I do need to talk to somebody about? Or is it really just the universe and my guides? I'm really hoping that people listening to this podcast will also maybe kind of have this little light bulb moment of, oh shit, I have been hearing that intuition and I have been pushing it off. And I do really want to do the thing. I want to heal. I want to feel better. That's the universe trying to push you, but do it.
How do I start this? It's on the spiritual connection and the mind fuck of connecting. I don't know podcast rules and I kind of have a radio brain. Like, can you say the F word? Is that a thing?
We just have to mark it as explicit content, right?
Yep. After episode 1, all of our episodes are explicit now.
Like how I all of a sudden am like, am I allowed to swear? Wait.
Oh, thank fucking God. I've been holding back so much.
Holding it in.
Fuck. Okay, I feel better now. Thank you.
When you start to get connected, it is a very spirally journey. You will spend a lot of time developing what your personal belief system is. When you run into issues, it can really mess with your confidence. It can mess with your confidence, with your whole journey. And it's good for you, but it can really just mess with you in the process. And for me personally, my journey was about growing up Catholic, right? And then I decided to step away from that, obviously, because here I am. So I had kind of built my personal belief system in a way that paralleled the Catholic Church's faith system. And it freaked me out at first. I was like, source and God are similar, and having guides or other entities is like saints, and praying is like manifesting, and then was like, and it really freaked me out. And then it occurred to me, okay, I was like, so just rewind. Does vague parallels between a church that you don't actually hate, you're just not a part of, and your personal beliefs discredit every thought you've put into this? I was like, no, dude, no, it's okay. Like, that's okay. That's just something you believe. I will say again, be compassionate to yourself. It's confusing. There is no rule book. You are writing the rule book as you're learning the language. So my God, there will be mistakes. Be gentle. Just continue. Make the time you spend off the horse as short as possible.
What I developed, at least to help my head fit all around it, is I call it a thesaurus of source. So you can open it up and you see love, you see God, you see Bahalua, you see source, you see in the universe, you see all these words, because it's all a thesaurus. It's all teaching how to be a better person, but taking the time to look past what man and fear imposed images have been foisted on them.
When you first discovered connection to something bigger than you, I found it incredibly overwhelming, but also puzzle pieces kind of fit. When I first recognized that I had connection outside of this realm, it freaked me out a lot. So I kind of would like us to touch upon that. If you found it overwhelming in the beginning, whether you find it overwhelming now. I found it overwhelming in the beginning, but now I'm like a pro. I'm just like, oh, let me whip out my dowsing rods. Let me whip out my pendulum. Let me whip out my tarot cards. Like, or if anybody comes to me, I'm actively seeking it. Whereas when it first happened, I was like, oh, no, thank you. No bueno.
Spiritual connection, it happened very, very young for me. Gosh, I think I was 5. I had an imaginary friend. He was this little boy, played together. He would steal my teddy bears. They'd be missing for days and then they'd be back in the same place. I honestly believe that was a little spirit child. And then I've also seen shadow people. A lot of the stuff that I tend to hear or understand tend to be from people who used to be here on this earth that are the loudest, whereas universe is a little bit quieter. And that's something that I'm currently working on to try and build up.
It's when I started channeling, I'd been working on that and I was part of a consciousness raising group. And somebody had asked a question and I actually started to channel. And it was great to feel the electric feeling around the circle. From there, I started feeling even more connected to source and being in the flow. My spiritual connection, I've been working on that and I continue to work on it. But to come through and have the messages to help somebody heal, that's very important. And now I've got to learn to listen to the messages that I receive about me. I spend so much time helping others. It's like, oh, I need to listen to what's coming through for me. So that's going to be my next chapter.
As a child, people always described me as like a little light creature and like I was a joy bringer and all of these things, right? And I felt very hooked up. I also don't remember when that stopped. I'm guessing in high school, maybe a little later, but sometime in that area, there was a big shift in my energy. And so for me, it's almost like my big like come to aha was like way later in life, I feel like almost because it was like coming back to it and being like, oh my gosh, I forgot this was gone. Like, and that was equally shaking, I imagine, just because it was very much for me like, oh, like where have I, like what have I been in? There was a big period of time in my life where I was making decisions that didn't resonate with who I was and what I was about. And it was very reflective in my connection. When I'm connected and feeling like spiritually connected, my intuition is better. I make choices that resonate with me more authentically.
So I'm on a similar path, or at least pattern of thinking, I guess, as Heidi, where I've developed my spiritual connection through listening during reflections and meditations and mediumship. And so I've been able to kind of not walk into something, but craft something that feels more in alignment with myself, just vibe it higher, because you're living in alignment with your soul. You still have problems, but you have more of a trust that you'll get yourself out of them safely because you're listening to your intuition. Synchronicities are the fact of two or more things happening exactly at the same time. The earliest known use is in 1953 in the Journal Society for Psychical. That's the word. We're also going to talk about universal truths. Universal truths are things that are obvious truths. They do not fluctuate and change as time passes, but we can have inherent universal truths of our own that do fluctuate based off of our life experiences.
Deities are across they're across religions, they're across mythos, and in almost everything that I have researched, it seems like they're all similar but different. So Hermes is Mercury, is Set is Loki. What I mean by that is all of these deities have a common thing that they are focused on. Loki and Hermes, they're both very, very different deities, but they're gods of mischief. So their focuses, their stories tend to sync up with each other in specific ways and in certain ways throughout different mythos, throughout different religious aspects. I keep coming back to we're all just human. We have to put a name to it. There's this energy out there that causes mischief. Well, we've got to put a name to it. So what is that? That's Loki. That's Hermes. And some universal truths that I constantly and always go back to, the flood myths. There are flood myths in so many religious texts, in so many historical texts. According to some scholars, the flood happened around 2000 to 1900 BCE, whatever terminology you want to use, which also correlates with the Abrahamic religion having Noah's flood around the same time. Mesopotamia, which is present-day Iraq, has the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was also around the same time. China has their own great flood of Gunyu around the same time. So whether it's one religious book or telling, this is something that happened. There was a flood.
Synchronicities, I see a lot of angel numbers. So what angel numbers are repeated numbers, sequences. So 111, 222, 1111, 444. I've seen them for as long as I can remember. And like the whole gambit, it's not ever just been like one number. Some people will only see one number. I see literally all of them. I go, oh, okay, I'm on the right track. So I just kind of like pay attention to what I'm doing or thinking or saying when I see these numbers pop up and just kind of like reflect. My list of universal truths is only 3 things. 1, you are not your body, your thoughts, or your emotions. This experience and stimulation intake of current reality is going to end for all of us at one point. And then the last thing that I think is a universal truth is that I don't know anything.
I see angel numbers. I look up in the clouds and I find my dragons. I'll see things, symbols, and stuff like that. And that reminds me that I do have a connection, that there is something. This leads into one of my universal truths, is that there is something greater than me, than the physical here, that I am a part of something greater and I am able to connect to it, that we all can connect to it. But I do know I am connected with Source in such a way that makes me a better person every day. That's my big, big universal truth.
This is an interesting topic for me because I had to mentally let go of the concept of universal truth, because when you're waking up to stuff, there's some spirally little mind fucks you can get yourself into. And I was having this really big issue with trust externally, kind of, right? And so it was I was getting into this weird headspace where I was like, well, you haven't observed that. That's not part of you don't have that knowledge. That's secondhand knowledge, all of these things. Okay. So eventually I just had to roll back and go, no, okay, it's okay. You're never going to know everything. You just have to accept that. And it's okay to build your reality based on what you've observed and what you've read. And coming back to that, I have no fucking clue what's true. No clue at all. Synchronicities, I am all about, man. So synchronicities, I look for in all sorts of places, all over the place. But the one that impacted my life the most was meeting my husband. He and I met in a very synchronistic way. The night I met him, I went out with a girl who I had known since middle school and never hung out with ever, and a coworker who I had never hung out with ever, and went to a party at someone's house who I didn't know, which is something I never ever do because I didn't even like people. So no business going to a party full of people I don't know, and met my husband.
To wrap this episode up, it's interesting to hear how different all of our journeys have been, and then also how similar and then also unique. I think my main takeaway, however, is this isn't something that's quantifiable. And so in researching for this episode, it was hard to find a lot of information on intuition and insight that came from credible sources, that came with research and studies. And this isn't a thing, much like magic, that we have been able to quantify and explain with science or medicine yet. Psychology understands that intuition is real and that it's a thing that we all have and need in order to live our best lives. That being said, in terms of magic, it seems like you're going to be your own teacher, which is daunting and scary. If there's things that you need assistance with, there are mentors or therapists, or you can talk with friends about it, right? But it seems like for the most part, in looking at your connection with any kind of a spirit, your connection with anything bigger than you, it all comes down to your connection with yourself and how ready you are to honor your own truths or your own needs and your own wants. Kind of expand your consciousness, right? It's really the beginning of everything. We've referenced intuition in every single episode up until this one, and not once dove into it, just because it's such a heavy and broad topic.
So I guess one of the biggest takeaways for me would be just that everybody's journey is going to look different. It's a long process and it's kind of ongoing. It's not really, there's no end point, right? It's a journey. For the millionth time, be kind to yourself. Give yourself some compassion along the way.
My biggest takeaway is to know that there are so many souls, especially right here, that are so connected, and in such a way to reassure me that there are people who are taking the time, making the effort to, and connecting with a community in which we all rise above and we all are doing our level best to grow and to learn and to love. So I'm very grateful for all of the work y'all are doing with this podcast, and I'm grateful to be a part of it tonight. Thanks.
Oh my gosh, Susy, thank you. Definitely my takeaway is very similar to all of your guys's. It's not going to look the same for everybody. It's not going to feel the same for everybody. Just because it comes and goes doesn't mean that it's not there. Sometimes you stumble. Sometimes it sucks. If you have those tools in place, if the muscle is built up, you're going to be able to pick yourself back up easier every time. You're going to be able to trust yourself, your instinct, and your gut I just want to thank everybody. This has been so awesome. I'm so thankful for you guys coming in. Our next episode, we're going to be discussing a very, very heavy, but very, very rewarding topic, trauma and the craft. Thank you so much, Susie. Is there anything else that you want to say about your business?
The business is Blue Lightning Healing. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook delivering messages. I talk to ancestors, and so many of the things you all said today, I was like, that's in my past life class. I do have a podcast, and it's called Blue Lightning Healing Meditations. I'm very much a proponent of listening to your heart and allowing it to sing.
Heidi, do you have anything you want to say about Wise Wolfcraft?
I'm Heidi. I'm the owner of Wise Wolfcraft. My business is energy healing through Reiki, divination at the beginning, especially through tarot. Now I do a little bit more varied methods. And I also am now teaching some classes to help you get in touch with your intuition. I also like to do small parties of people where we can get together and read tea leaves as a group.
Thank you for joining us today, Susie and Heidi. You guys already know that Heidi's a wonderful human being, and I follow her on social media on every account that I have. I also follow Susie on every account that I have. I'm a huge fan of Susie's, which is one of the big reasons why I wanted to have her on for this episode. I think she has a lot of good insight, and her social media content is super helpful. If ever you're feeling down, you can just give on a little scroll in there, and she's got like meditation work or like healing work that you can look into. So you can follow Susie on socials at Blue Lightning Healing, and Heidi is of course at Wise Wolfcraft. She's recently been sharing her rose escapades, which has been fun. You can follow us on Instagram at A Dark Path Podcast.
Until next time.
It is now that our time together must come to an end. Thank you for joining us on this journey, a dark path come to a bend. Find us here bi-monthly on your favorite place to stream, and follow us on social media for news in between. A dark path is there, winding and waiting ever. May you craft peace, knowledge, and alignment, so shall it be, or something better.